Hello. Today I wanted to talk about the ways that partial ellipses face. So, if you're familiar with any of the times that I draw ellipses, more often than not I will draw them as completed. Well, more completed in that example. But sometimes I will also use ellipses in a partial way. So like in this ellipse, actually let me do it better. Let me have something to put it around. I'll draw a cone real quick, or a cylinder. And the funny thing here is that this cylinder is going to be made up of a couple full ellipses, not partial. But I am going to fit partial ellipses within. And we know from these full ellipses that they're full, so it's kind of like all of the importance of the ellipse is the entire ellipse. And we can tell that this side is closer to us than this side. But when you draw through your forms, sometimes it can cause a bit of confusion to tell what is what. Like, I think in this case, when you draw an ellipse like that, depicting the bottom, if we were actually looking at this in reality, we wouldn't be able to see that ellipse. So this is where partial ellipses could be beneficial to avoiding line debt. So we have our partial ellipse right here. And basically what partial ellipses really allow you to do is they allow you to draw the most important part of the ellipse and neglect the other part. So the purpose is we are showing how this ellipse sits along the contour of our cylinder in 3D space, but we didn't draw the other portion of it. And because we didn't, we actually may end up avoiding some confusion. In another video, I talked about a thing called line debt. And the best kind of debt, because the only thing it may do is cause someone a bit of confusion, perhaps those who are less experienced with dealing with line debt. But the purpose of it can be beneficial, but if you don't need it, you may not want to use it, and a partial ellipse can really help you understand it. So the important thing to note is that, yeah, it's a partial ellipse, but this thing does exist as an actual full ellipse. Like, even though we didn't draw through it, it still does have that other side. And the important thing is that, this area here where we didn't draw a curved line, it doesn't put a strain on the viewer, you, or if you need to remember to do something with it later on. I just realized I didn't make that ellipse really that straight. I kind of made it a bit too curved. But it's more like that. So the other thing I wanted to mention is, the partial ellipses. Ellipses could do a lot, but partial ellipses could be actually expanded a bit to become what I like to call a partial contour. I think if I was to offer one example that I could always keep thinking about, I keep thinking of like a puddle of goop. Like, I don't really know what to call it, but I remember there was this exercise I did a while ago, and it was like sausage forms sitting in 3D space. And like one of the sausages was kind of like a bit flattened by the other. It was kind of like overhanging another sausage, and it was a bit deformed from it. So in this case, what you can do is I'm doing a partial ellipse, but you'll see how I'm pretty much making it a more of a partial contour. So it's kind of like a melting of our partial ellipse into a organic contour. I mean, I guess I really couldn't call it an ellipse, but yeah, I guess I would say it would be a partial contour. And more often than not, it can be extremely beneficial to use those to describe the morphology of organic things. Sometimes you will run into drawing organic things in which they have bizarre contours. If I was to think of one example, if you ever look at gourds, if I'm going to draw one off the top of my head, gourds usually start with like a stem, and they usually have like some type of thing around them like that. And sometimes they go really bizarre. They grow in a very odd way, which you have something like that, then you have, then you have like something like that. There are gourds out there. I'm probably not, I'm doing this from the top of my head, so you'll just have to bear with me through the example here. But there are gourds that like do really, that have like a pinch in the middle of them. I don't know why they do that. There's probably some reason. I keep thinking that was probably a bad one. I should have just kept it to that and have drawn like a squash like that. But the important thing here is that this center point here, it does like, so this, where the stem would go in, and I probably should have put it down a bit more, it actually sits within like a bit of a depression before like the vine comes out. So the reality is, more often than not, you kind of have like these contours that go along the gourd that are kind of like that, and they kind of go up, or more like kind of like that. I probably should have drawn another ellipse here to kind of represent. It's just, this ellipse that I'm drawing right now is more of a constructional ellipse to kind of show the spread out point, how like it gets smaller the closer in, but as it goes out, it kind of like gets a bit wider. But now, I kind of made a lot of mistakes along the way. I probably should have done it like that. And I wanted to keep it, like I should have kept that contour along the bounds. I realized I kind of messed up that one as well. But yeah, you could use these other contours to help describe the morphology of the squash. I mean, it's all about representing weird organic things in 3D space. It could be very beneficial to do that. And as you know, like obviously, if you were to take a squash and cut into slices, you probably could try to slice it around the chunks. If you ever looked at like a pumpkin, you'll notice how like a pumpkin kind of has, it looks like a bunch of chunks that kind of bulge out a little bit. And these are those contours that I'm trying to describe. I didn't connect them. But yeah, those are the contours that I'm trying to elaborate on. So do know there are many different ways to try to deal with it. Understand that the whole point of a partial ellipse is to only draw the portion of the ellipse that we're really concerned with to avoid line depth. When I say line depth, I'm talking about every time you add lines to a page, I have always felt like it causes a lot more processing of your mind, and it may cause some stress because you're dealing with a bunch more stuff on a page rather than a blank page. And I think partial ellipses are just one way to help try to deal with that, because when I look at these two ellipses, this ellipse that I just drew and that ellipse that I just drew, I'll make it a bit wider. I always thought that this one causes a little bit less stress on the mind. I could be wrong, I guess it depends on the person, but I am just trying to help you, not harm you, so whether you use what I'm saying, that is totally up to you, and just know that it's a tool. So if you have a question, please ask below in the comments. If you like my video, please like it, and if you like my channel, please subscribe. Thank you for listening. Bye.